It all began on what seemed like just another peaceful afternoon in a small, sleepy town where not much ever really happened. The golden sun bathed the streets in a warm glow, birds chirped lazily in the distance, and the rhythm of daily life moved gently, like clockwork. Officer Ryan, with his usual coffee in hand, was out patrolling the streets, calm, focused, watching the flow of cars drift by like a slow, steady river. He had no idea that within the next hour, something would unfold that would be burned into the memory of every single officer at the station. Something unforgettable. Something that would change the way they saw people forever. An older man walked into the local grocery store at that very moment. His steps were a little slow, a little heavy. He wore a worn-out army jacket, slightly faded from time, and his right leg dragged just a bit as he walked, a limp that hinted at some old injury, long endured. His name? Henry Wilson. Quiet, soft-spoken, polite. He moved like a man who had learned patience through years of experience. People didn't know much about him, to be honest. He lived alone, out in a small cabin just outside the edge of town. Most folks just assumed he was a retired vet or maybe just an ordinary elderly man keeping to himself. Harmless. Forgettable. Or so they thought. But within minutes, Henry was surrounded, accused, handcuffed, and wrongly arrested. The officers believed they were doing their duty. They followed protocol, sure. But what they didn't realize was who they had just locked up. And even more shocking, what would happen just 30 minutes later would turn their world upside down. Inside the store, Henry moved through the aisles at his own slow pace. He picked up a simple loaf of bread, a bottle of milk, and a small can of soup. Essentials. He gave the cashier a gentle smile as he stepped in line. Then, out of nowhere, a young man standing in front of him fumbled his wallet. It dropped to the floor, and without skipping a beat, the man walked out. Fast. The cashier's eyes followed him, then suddenly turned to Henry. "Hey, you took that wallet," she accused. Her voice was sharp. Henry's eyes widened, confused. No, I didn't touch anything," he said calmly. But she wouldn't hear it. She insisted that she had seen him bend down and pick something up. Henry tried again. "Ma'am, there's been a mistake." But before the truth had a chance to surface, the store manager had already called the police. Just minutes later, officers Ryan and Jacobs arrived at the scene. The manager didn't waste a second. He pointed directly at Henry. "That's him. That's the man who tried to steal." Without verifying, without questions, the officers moved in. "Sir, turn around. Hands behind your back," one of them commanded. Henry, visibly shocked, raised his hands. "I didn't do anything." "I think you're mistaken," he replied. But no one listened. Roughly, they cuffed him and walked him to the squad car. A few people outside stopped to watch. Some looked uneasy. Others just stood frozen. Back at the station, Officer Jacobs tossed Henry's army jacket onto a bench and locked him in the holding cell. "You know, stealing a wallet is no small crime, old man," he said with a smirk, shaking his head. But Henry? He didn't react. He sat down quietly. Too quietly. His expression wasn't scared. It wasn't even upset. It was composed. Officer Ryan stared at him from behind the glass. "There's something weird about this guy," he whispered to Jacobs. "He's not even nervous." Jacobs laughed it off. "Yeah, probably, because it's not his first time." But then, while filling out paperwork, Ryan picked up Henry's jacket again to look for ID. That's when he found it, in a hidden pocket, a metal badge. Shiny despite its age. It had an eagle on it. Bold letters, United States Special Forces. Clearance, Alpha level. Ryan froze. "What the?" he muttered. Jacobs leaned over, eyes wide. "That looks real," he said. They opened Henry's wallet, no credit cards. Just one military ID that didn't look like anything they'd ever seen before. Now feeling very unsure, Ryan dialed the number printed on the back of the ID. It rang once. "This is Agent Collins. FBI. "Who is this?" came the voice on the other end. Ryan swallowed hard. Officer Ryan, Millstone PD. "We have a man here, Henry Wilson." Arrested for suspected theft. Silence. Then, sharper. Repeat that name. Henry Wilson. More silence. Then Agent Collins spoke again, voice firm and cold. Secure the building. Do not question him.
Do not speak to him.
We are en route. We'll be there in 30 minutes.
Click.
Ryan's hand shook as he lowered the phone. Jacob stared. Who did we just arrest? Neither could answer. But their faces were pale now. Meanwhile, in the holding cell, Henry sat quietly as if nothing had happened. He looked up calmly and said, with a slight smile, "You boys might want to brew a fresh pot of coffee. It's going to be a long day." Exactly 30 minutes later, 4 black SUVs rolled up to the station. They didn't just arrive, they took over. Out stepped agents in black suits, with intensity in their eyes. One walked straight to the front desk. "Where is he?" Ryan pointed, speechless. The agents unlocked the cell and walked in. "Mr. Wilson," one of them said respectfully, "we're truly sorry for the inconvenience. We'll take it from here." They shook his hand with respect. Deep respect. Ryan and Jacobs didn't move.
Couldn't.
Another agent stayed behind for a moment, looked them both in the eye and asked, "Do you even know who that man is?" They shook their heads. Henry Wilson served in 5 combat zones. He's been part of operations so classified, even most agents in the FBI don't know the details. He's prevented terrorist attacks, saved lives, and his loyalty? Beyond question. He paused. "You're lucky that man is patient." And just like that, they were gone. Officer Ryan sat down, stunned.
Silent.
The arrest replayed in his mind like a bad dream. The cuffs. The shove. The ignored words. Jacobs finally whispered, "We never even let him speak." Ryan just nodded. 1 week later, an envelope arrived at the station. It was simple, handwritten. The note inside read, "To Officers Ryan and Jacobs, we all make mistakes. What matters is what we learn from them. Stay sharp. Stay humble. Henry Wilson." Tucked inside the letter was something incredible, a military challenge coin. Not just any coin. This kind was only awarded to the most respected veterans, true heroes. Ryan held it for a long time, in silence. Because sometimes the quietest people hold the loudest stories. Sometimes, the man you overlook is the one who once risked everything to protect your freedom. Henry Wilson? He wasn't just an old man. He was a silent hero. And now, they would never look at people the same way again. If you felt something from this story, if it moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Because the world is full of hidden stories, and we're just getting started. Thank you for watching. And always remember, respect is free. And true heroes? They often walk among us in silence.